report as pride and dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panlo TV and welcome to this, another, it's called Dolphins, a second reply to Stefan Molyneux. My goodness me. You know, it's like buses, you know, you get none for ages, then three come along all at once. In my case, you get reply videos to Stefan Molyneux in the same way. I did one just a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? This is my third reply. This is Dolphins, a second reply. I'm afraid, sorry, I haven't, believe it or not, I've just fixed my green screen. I haven't got it out. And I'm sorry, I can't be bothered to go back and get it and start this video again. I'm sorry, I don't have time. But yeah, I'm a bit too tired. So I hope you'll excuse me. But honestly, my next video after this one will have the repaired green screen. And so you won't get all these weird, strange, etheric effects where I seem to be moving in and out of reality. Anyway, yeah, this is a follow-up. This is another reply video to Stefan Molyneux, but it's actually slightly different to previous ones. By that, I mean, I'm not actually going to play you an audio by Molly. What I'm going to do instead, I'm simply going to link in the description box a background video where I do have a Molly audio to play. It's 4,000 something, and it's about dolphins and what happens is Stefan Molyneux brings this caller onto the show. They start discussing dolphins. And as often, I listened to it and I thought, well, I'm going to have to do a reply video to this because Molyneux gets a lot of things wrong. And he does. Stefan Molyneux is a very, very interesting internet philosopher, as you know. And I do respect him a lot. And I think he talks a lot of sense quite regularly. However, every so often, he does say things that I think are a bit daft and need to be corrected, which is why I'm doing these series of videos. This whole project is based on that particular venture. You know, it's like some people, you know, they're actually more interesting when they're talking crap than when they're talking sense, which means, of course, it gives me a chance to do reply videos for him to create content for my channel and indeed for you to entertain and enlighten you, the viewers. So I'm very grateful to Molyneux for that, actually. I'm very grateful indeed. So that's a good sort of launching off point for this particular video. What I'm going to do is, like I said, there's no audio I'm going to play from Molly, but I'm going to put a link in the description box to Stefan Molyneux's video about dolphins. This interview he did with this guy talking about dolphins. Now, if you've not seen that, it's probably best if you go and watch it, actually, because this video might not make a lot of sense unless you have watched that. I'll try to make it as comprehensive as possible, but the video in the description box, which I did long ago, back in 2018, is really a good background to what you're about to hear now. I'll try and recap a little bit, but I'm not going to repeat myself here because then this video will basically be twice as long, and there's no point doing the first video. So I'm going to keep what's in the first video. But basically, the subject we're going to talk about is kind of what you see behind you here, and this is actually a slide from the website we're going to explore, which I'm repeating with under fair use guidelines. What you see is a number of ships and boats and illustrations of sound waves in the sea. Because we are talking about cetaceans, that is marine mammals of the whale and dolphin variety. And we're going to talk about the sounds they make, the sounds these creatures make, and how it's increasingly likely and increasingly the case, and it's been accepted more and more by science, that this is actually some kind of complex spoken language, similar to what we humans do to each other. That is, we speak to each other and communicate lots of interesting abstract concepts. Not all animals are capable of doing this. However, I think more animals actually do this than I think most people give them credit. I think probably more animals have a spoken language, not just dolphins, but others, which I think might surprise you. Animals which you previously thought couldn't communicate more than a few basic ideas through, you know, grunts and sniffs and barks and meows and things like that, may actually turn out to have quite like a complex verbal language or even communication by other means. this shouldn't be a surprise if you actually have a pet, like a higher animal, like a cat or a dog. That shouldn't surprise you, because a lot of pet owners say, they do, when they get to know their companion, there is a large amount of interspecies communication. That's not a secret. Obviously, a dog will bark when a stranger comes to the house that he doesn't like, or is hungry, wants to go out for a walk. They'll find ways of letting you know that. But it goes deeper than that. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard the phrase, "You've got to be careful what you say in front of a dog." Dogs can understand a certain amount of human language. They can't speak, obviously, so it's easy to assume, therefore, we can just say whatever we like and they'll never understand us. But they do. They pick up certain words. They pick up names. They know people's names. They learn certain words, and they pick up certain words and phrases, which gives them a clue about what you're talking about. There's a guy who said that you couldn't mention the word vet, because the dog would go crazy with fear, because he'd know you're going to the vet, things like that. And the phrase, saying walkies or walk, obviously the dog will understand that as well. Someone had to spell words out like VET or WALK, or the dog would sort of like react to that. So we're going to talk about this study that's been going on, which is a bit of an update on the previous video, the first reply about dolphins. It's not just about dolphins. In fact, it's about other cetaceans, specifically the sperm whale. This is the whale that's this particular project has been most interested in. But dolphins are the ones that the original study was done. As I say in the first video, what I'm about to talk about builds upon the work of Denise Herzing and what she discovered, and other people who've been working with dolphins. It's, in a sense, I mean, I don't know if Stefan is going to do an update to his own opinion on this. I hope he does, because this supports the idea that there is actually interesting and complex communication between these creatures, and that Stefan's idea, they're just basically like little dogs that swim in the sea. They're dumb, they're stupid, which is what he said. They're delightful creatures, but they're really, really, you can't have a proper conversation with them. That's essentially has proved him wrong. So we're going to talk about Project SETI. Now, of course, I've done entire videos on SETI, S-E-T, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And this particular project is kind of named as a kind of joke to that, because we're out there looking for creatures from other planets to communicate with. Yet there are creatures on our own planet which we maybe should look at first, because it's a bit easier to talk to them, because firstly, they're more closely related to us than any alien could be. Secondly, they're an awful lot closer. You don't have to send them signals and wait 50,000 years for a reply. So what is Project SETI? Well, we'll look at their website in a minute to give you a brief overview, if I can. It's short for Cetacean Translation Initiative. This is quite new, actually. It was only launched in 2020 and centered on Dominica, which is where there are a lot of sperm whales, where some scientists have been studying them originally. But it's a non-profit, interdisciplinary, scientific and conservation initiative to study and translate the communication of sperm whales. Now, this is really quite something, isn't it? Because that's quite an ambitious job. They want to work out decode the language and then translate it so we know what they're saying. I don't know if that's actually possible or not, but it says here, the organization operates its primary data collection base off the coast of the Caribbean island of Dominica, and researchers utilize non-invasive underwater listening arrays, specialized tags, acoustic buoys, and aquatic drones to capture whale clicks and corresponding social behaviors. And what they've discovered, all kinds of things. What they've discovered is that these whistles and clicks and these wailing noises, they are not just random, or they're not just sort of like little signals that are like the hooting of an owl or the quailing of a fox. They are literally they've detected, catalogued 156 distinct acoustic patterns, which they call coders. These are like words and phrases. And they've uncovered that whale communication relies on subtle variations in tempo, rhythm, and ornamentation, similar to the structural complexity of human language. We already know from the first video, if you remember, that they obey Zipf's law. Zipf's law is the law of organ. It's I can't remember the exact quote. I could look it up, but it's basically how organized noise, organized sounds are distinguishable from random noise, so or random initiatives. Here we are. A statistical rule that the frequency of any item is in a sorted set is inversely proportional to its rank. It's named after the linguist George Kingsley Zipf, and this is the most common item appears twice as often as the second most common, 3 times as often as the third, so etc. etc. Now this basically identifies human language, because human languages all obey these rules. And indeed, the thing is, the dolphin clicks, as Denise Herzing discovered, he went Chomsky's theory, a theory of language. Hang on. But they also, I'm just going along, I'm adjusting my notes as I go along. What's also unusual is that all human languages obey these laws, Zipf's law, and as you know from the first video, this is a recap. Dolphin clicks also obey Zipf's law. And what's more, I think I found out something. There was Chomsky's law. Now, Chomsky's law is named after Noam Chomsky, who he's a very well-known political commentator, a left-wing activist, but he's also a linguist, and he's discovered what he calls language acquisition, which means that I can't find the details. Basically, he was just saying that there is a theory of universal language, universal grammar, that all human languages obey. Here we go. Chomsky's theory of language acquisition is a nativist account. Children are born biologically prepared to detect grammatical patterns in the speech around them, rather than learning language for imitation or reward. So so basically what they say, there are certain factors in certain factors in languages which are universal grammar. So the there's certain features that all human languages have. This could be because they're all somehow related. They all basically descend from what's known as the mother tongue, which was a language spoken in the prehistoric eras from which spawned all modern human languages. Now, it's contrary to popular belief. It doesn't mean, some people think, well, that means that everyone used to speak the same language. It's like the Tower of Babel, and everyone used to speak the same language and it split off. No. The language, the mother tongue, was one of probably thousands of languages spoken at the time. But it's the only one that survived to the modern day in the form of all modern human languages. So we know that there's language families like Indo-European and Sino-Tibetan and things like that. And everyone's been trying to link them back. So they link Indo-European to Semitic and things like that. And then they're trying to all link them back. And there's outliers like Basque and Korean, which they're trying to link in somehow to detect similarities. And the idea is that somehow these all descended from one language. And that's Chomsky's law. Now, whether the whale and dolphin signals obey Chomsky's law, I don't know specifically, but they do seem to have certain features, and indeed we'll go into that. We'll go into that a little bit in a little while. But yeah, this is a very, very interesting project. They've actually got a phonetic alphabet of sperm whales now, and it's written in the form of sonographs, and we'll go into that. And there's now machine learning using AI, and they've got the whale acoustic model that can process audio input, translating into sperm whale vocalizations, which means it can be played back in a way that humans. So there's all kinds of things. So it's essentially the creation of what you might call it's like writing a dictionary and a grammar for whales. That's what they're trying to do right now, which is difficult. And we can't actually speak to whales in the form of our own voice, because we vocalize. We humans have vocal cords, which is at the larynx here, and we create sounds by passing air from our lungs through the larynx, which you can switch on and off. You can whisper like that, or you can use it like that, or you can whisper. So depending on your will, you can you can activate your larynx a lot or not. And our mouths and tongues and other parts of our throat and tongues and various features of our airway actually cause us to have to make different noises, which is how language works. The whales have similar things, but they have a similar structure in terms of within their heads they have various chambers and what we might call equivalent of sinuses. These sinuses then are used to generate various kinds of noise, which they can adjust. And I'll show you. There's a picture of it here. Here we go. It's easier to show you. This is the sperm whale's acoustic organ here. There's the junk melon, the spermaceti organ, left nasal passage, and there's the blowhole where they breathe and things like that. Phonetic lips, this place here, it adjusts the sound and things like that. So this is the mechanism of how they speak. So let's have a look at their website. Now, there's a National Geographic, an interesting, you could read this article to give you a bit more background. It probably explains it better than I do. But it says this is a National Geographic explorer, Dr. David Gruber, founded Project SETI, the Cetacean Translation Initiative, to translate whale speech. So again, it's building on the work of Denise Hersing, who wants to try to translate dolphin speech. Now, you see, they haven't got to the point where they can actually translation means knowing what they're talking about. Now, all we're doing so far is we're actually creating a catalog of the different sounds and the structure of the language. It doesn't mean we understand it. So that's the important point. But here we can listen to them. There's a video here. See, listen to the whales. I don't know how much I can. It shouldn't hurt. So this is a campaign video. What animals might teach us? It's all very poetic, isn't it? This is how they do it. This is how they collect the sound. Record them. Project SETI. See. There's your drone. That's your aerial drone. Wow. We knew what they were saying. Yeah, we don't yet. You see, that's going to be a bigger job. I see. AI is good for something, isn't it? Wow, and that is actually another microphone. How about that, eh? It's called SETI 1. That's it. Just imagine. We're beginning to understand. Wow. So if you say, "Oh, shut up, Ben, and let us watch," all right. I have to keep. The reason I keep talking, interrupting, is I'm trying to avoid a copyright strike with this damn thing. It would only be a third-party strike, but still, it's annoying when this happens. That's nice. Do they really know these things? I mean, do they really know that's what it means? I think this is maybe speculative. Actually, interpreting their actual speech into concepts that we'd understand, I think it's going to be a bit of a more difficult job. I love it. I probably will get some Boudica moments in this or similar things in this particular video, so just be prepared for that. Amazing. See, they're kicking at each other. Do we know that? We'll see again. We're not reached that stage yet. I have actually just to let you know, I have actually joined there. I've actually signed up for their mailing list and things like that, so I'm getting all their information on this because it's fascinating. And you can donate to them. I sent them a little bit. You can donate to them. So that's really critical. They've just actually put something, because I follow them on LinkedIn. They've just put a new thing on LinkedIn, which is about the noises made by ships. Now, as you see here, I think I might have to go like this for you. I think I might have to do this quickly. There you go. You can see the whole picture there. With shipping, it says here radiated noise. Now, what it basically says, and we'll look at their website in a minute, but they appear to be responding to the noise made by marine traffic, human marine traffic. Now, ships are incredibly noisy, and indeed, there's even an idea that they can't actually talk to each other as far away from it. They used to be able to have conversations on different oceans, and now they can't do that anymore. They can only hear each other a few hundred miles away. So it's a bit like if you're in the middle of the way they talk to each other now is different to how they used to before we had large motor ships. So before large motor ships, they could just talk as we would talk in a quiet location. Now it's a bit like being in a noisy nightclub with music playing really loudly, and they're adjusting their speech. So it's like when you're in a nightclub, you have to shout in each other's ears and things like that, things like that, because there's so much loud music around you, and they're doing the same thing. And there's campaigns to try and make ships quieter. Which is perfectly possible, actually. There's no reason why ships should be so noisy, because we have the technology to make them much quieter. We know that because of warships. Warships are very quiet. In fact, I've seen warships sailing when I was, on the south coast near Portsmouth. You can sometimes see them. Apart from the hiss of the water past their hull, they're silent. That's because their engineering specifically has dampeners on it and things like that, so that they have to stay quiet because they're trying to hide from enemy hydrophones. Hydrophones similar to the ones the SETI people use, but they're military ones which are designed to search for enemy ships and submarines and things like that, and locate them. And so the ships are very quiet. So warships are very quiet. Of course, that technology is classified, but it can be developed independently by civilian scientists, I'm absolutely sure. So ships could be made quieter, and I hope they will be at some point, because then the whales can go back to talking to each other over vast differences. That should be absolutely great, I'm just having a look at my notes here, because I'm interested to know if it's possible to the decoding thing is very, very interesting indeed. Obviously, I'll be following to see if they actually make a decoding breakthrough. But where's that? I've got their actual website. Where is it? I'll just close this tab. There is actually a official website for them, and we'll look at it now. I've been reading their Wikipedia page. That's where I got that image from. They have an official website at projectseti.org. Again, I'm claiming fair use on all this. Understand what whales are saying. Yeah, and this is the very upmarket website here. What would it mean to understand what whales are saying? Yeah. It says here why this matters. Well, of course it matters. I mean, I'm curious to know what they have to say about that, but here we go. Oh, sponsored by University of Oxford, of course. That's good. In partnership with Why This Matters. We're listening and translating how other species communicate, achieve breakthroughs, share our learnings, transform human understanding, connectivity, leverage our finding. It says our vision. I'm not sure we can go through all this, but this is a TED Talk by David Gruber, which I won't watch now. You can go and watch that if you want. You can go watch that what you want later if you like. But whoops. But I'll just go back up here, and we'll just go to this. This is the opening page. What if their sounds became stories? Take the plunge and discover a hidden world. Let's click visit now and see what happens. And we open up a new page. Listen to Project SETI. Right. Listen to the whales, yes. I think this may be the video we've just seen. A deep archive. Let's go back to the original page here and see what that says. And let's just look at our vision. Our vision, here we go. There's an awful lot here you can look at at your leisure. Just go to projectseti.org and you can see it. And it just says here about. You see, this is all, the reason I'm bringing this up is this is all proving Molly wrong. Everything he said in that video in 2018 is wrong. And it says, in the late 1960s, scientists, including principal SETI advisor Dr. Roger Payne, discovered that whales sing to one another. His recording, Songs of the Humpback Whale, sparked the Save the Whales movement. And yeah, that's actually a very interesting point, which I'll come back to. One of the most successful conservation initiatives in history, which led to a moratorium on whaling, the marine mammal protection, etc. And just by hearing the sounds of whales, imagine what would happen if we could understand them. Yeah, this is the team, various people involved. There's David Gruber, CEO, founder. They all look quite young. I think most of them are quite young. There seems to be a young person's thing. These are various people around, the scientists working on this project. They look quite sort of young and idealistic, a bit like me. Well, I'm not so young, but I am idealistic. I'm young at heart. Yeah, and it's just amazing. It's really quite amazing, isn't it? And what they've discovered is, going back to my notes, very, very interesting things. It's kind of like I bring this point up in my SETI talk, and this is maybe one of the reasons why SETI, as it currently is a bit of a futile effort, because if it takes this long to learn to talk to another species, how are we going to talk to another species on our own planet who we are related to biologically? How are we going to speak to something on another planet, whether they visit us first or whether we go to them or to communicate with them, that is not biologically related to us at all? And this is why I love the film Arrival. It's the best alien invasion movie ever. I think I did a full review of it at some point, one of my videos, in which there was literally these aliens land, and the majority of the film is about how do you communicate with them. They don't sort of mutter incoherences about revenge being a dish best served cold, take me to your leader, etc. They speak. They're like these heptapod things, like these squid-like creatures called heptapods, and they are literally you have to decode their language, which is where they draw circles like that in the air. Yeah. But what we found, like I said, what was in that video is kind of speculative, but what we have found out so far is really interesting. Firstly, not all whale language is the same. Different whales from different groups, or pods as they call them, in different parts of the world these are sperm whales, the same species, have slightly different sounds. They speak differently, which of course is what humans do. I could, when I say Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity Stop the New World Order, welcome to Panmo TV. In one of my other videos, my visiting the Senate, I say, what is it? Pothori, Baltad Eras, Pothori and Uspati, Ateloch a Trevor with a bead, Croeso Ida Ledi Hapanwo. I'm speaking a different language. I'm speaking Welsh. And of course, you go other places, they speak French, which I can't speak French. But there's other language, of course, I can't speak, which I can't actually repeat to you. But of course, indeed, it turns out that whales are exactly the same. And the same species, sperm whales, have regional variations in their speech. And they've also picked up recordings from the young ones, the babies, and they found that they are like children. I mean, maybe they are like Chomsky's laws. They have this innate ability, this innate mindset, which creates universal grammar, but they learn by copying the adults. And so these different words and phrases, which they call coders, They've chosen a different word. This initiative, this project, maybe because they don't want to associate. If they use words like whale, if they use terms like words, phrases, sentences, etc., it could be people get the wrong idea and maybe misinterpret the scale of their conclusions. But they found, what's interesting is, I mean, Anton Petrov did a video about this, and he said, guess what? He said, whale language is like Chinese. And I thought, blimey, does that mean you could order like some green pepper and black bean sauce with egg fried rice or something? No, of course not. Of course not. What he meant by that is that the coders are delivering different, these set of sounds, which are described, they do use the word vowels. Firstly, they are delivered sometimes in different tones, different, as you said, as it said earlier, they're like different levels of volume, amplitude, and different tempo and things like that. These vary. So the same coders vary in how they're delivered in terms of like rising or lowering tones. Well, guess what? That's what Chinese does. Mandarin Cantonese has it's tonal. It's called a tonal language. I don't know if there's any other languages that have that. I'm just curious about this because I'm interested in languages. But I think they're called tonal languages. I don't know if Chinese is the only one, but I know Chinese languages are like that. It's just tonal languages. Tonal languages. This is where the meaning of the word changes depending on the tone in which it's addressed. So changing the pitch of a sound turns it into an entirely new word. For example, in Mandarin Chinese, saying ma with a high flat pitch means mother, but saying with a rising pitch means hemp. So I say ma, ma, high pitch, but I say ma, that means hemp. That could be a bit tricky if you're smoking a spliff, isn't it? And you start talking about your mother. So that's interesting. So it says here, over half the world's languages use tone. Oh, right, that's interesting. They're common across Southeast Asia, such as Chinese, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Many native groups in the Americas, right? Common examples are Thai, Cantonese, Igbo, Navajo. These are Amerindian languages. Yes, that's interesting. So there you are. So it's not quite as uncommon as I thought it was. That's an interesting thing. It turns out the whale languages are like those tonal languages in that sense. Another interesting things, right? The coders change depending on which coder they follow, or they proceed or succeed. Now that's very interesting indeed. So a coder will be one form when it's followed or it follows another coder, but then change the coders it follows or is followed by it, and then the coder itself changes. And this is another thing that human languages do. Words change depending on usually the phonetics of what follows or comes afterwards. So, for example, I say a computer, an apple. A computer, an apple. Why is there two words for the indefinite article marker? That is a or an. I mean, those words they indicate an indefinite article as opposed to the, which is a definite article. The reason there's a or an is because a computer is followed, so it's followed by a consonant. An is followed by a vowel, apple. That's interesting. And they discovered, it was really interesting, they picked up huge amounts of tonals from a very interesting, and this fits in, I think, with more about their kind of behavior and about how they are so intelligent and sensitive creatures. They feel emotions very much, and they have an ability to think and have a consciousness because they have midwifery practice. So what happens is if a cow whale is given birth, they're called cows and bulls, like bovines. The other females will help it in a form of a midwife, and they'll talk to each other very, very vocally. They'll give off a lot of coders. And now what's happened is the team in Dominica, the SETI team, are now moving on to humpbacks and dolphins. And where is Dominica? I think it's in the Caribbean. Is there a particular place it is? So I just want to get all these things. There was actually a porter I worked with from Dominica, a hospital porter. So there's Dominica and there's the Dominican Republic. So Dominica is a Dominica. So it's the Commonwealth of Dominica. It's an island country in the Caribbean. There we go. So that's where it's all happening. There's a lot of sperm whales come and go from there, and so therefore it's a good place to study them. So that's Dominica. Okay, we've got that sorted. I know where that is now. They're actually the team in Dominica are actually studying now. They're now studying humpbacks and dolphins. So you could go there. By the way, don't get it confused with the Dominican Republic, which is one half of the island of Hispaniola, the other being Haiti, where the voodoo goes, where you get the voodoo curses. Yes. So I mean, this is really an extraordinary insight into it. This is no surprise to me that they have this, because we know that they are social creatures. We know they're intelligent. We know they exhibit like a lot of community spirit, shall we say, and that actually shouldn't be surprised that they have a language. I mean, there's this amazing story. This is going to give me a Boudica moment or something similar. There's this orca, this killer whale orca. Yeah, orca carries dead calf for 17 days. Have you seen this? A southern resident killer whale named Taliqua J35 famously carried her dead newborn calf for 17 days. Over 1,000 miles of the Pacific Northwest in 2018. The calf lived only for about 30 minutes, then passed away, and they travelled thousands of miles through the Salish Sea. Taliqua kept the lifeless body balanced on her head or pushed it ahead of her in the water, retrieving it if it sank. Other pod members occasionally took turns supporting the carcass. And it's... oh God, it's sad, isn't it? Researchers widely interpret this extraordinary display as a profound expression of grief and mourning. Yes. I remember the Sky King. Do you remember Richard Russell when he stole that airplane? He mentioned this in his final radio conversations before he crashed the plane and killed himself. Do you remember? The Sky King. God, that's a story in itself. But it's kind of like, it shows it. Some people have interpreted this as a funeral. There's no biological reason for them to do this. In the same way, there's no biological reason for us to bury our dead. I mean, I'm thinking about this. I've just come back from the Undertaker, actually, because my daughter's uncle died back in May, and it's taken a long time. We're trying to sort his funeral out. But Taliqua was the name of the orca. It says here she did have another calf who did survive, which is nice. But her second calf, called Tali, died shortly after birth. And J35, that's the whale they gave her a name after, carried her body for 17 days in an apparent show of grief with the help of her community. And I can't keep reading this. I'm sorry, I can't. It's just it shows it's an example of what I'm talking about, isn't it? It's an example of what I'm talking about. This has been kind of predicted by science fiction for a while. And this goes on to the question, is decoding possible? Because what we're seeing here is not decoding. I showed you a video where you see the whales doing something, and it's followed. There's a caption that says, "Let's dive, good night," things like that. We don't know what these coders... You see, what we'd have to do is like associate... the whales themselves know what these coders mean when they're communicating. There's obviously an understanding, otherwise they wouldn't do it. We don't know necessarily what they're talking about. And how do we find out? That's the question. How do we find out? I suppose we watch their behavior. So if, for example, there's a situation where there is a whale funeral, like the one you're talking about, what we've just been talking about, they may make certain sounds, which so for example, if the carcass falls and the others go and they make a noise, go and grab it, that means, get him, go and grab him quick before he sinks, or something like that. Or if you see there's like a school of fish and one of the whales spots it, and then immediately wants the other, and immediately starts making certain sounds towards the other whales, and they come running, you'll know that means there's fish over here. Let's go get them and eat them. That kind of thing. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So that's actually, so if that happens, if the scientists study that for long enough, they may work out what some of the coders actually mean. In the same way, if I don't speak a language and I go and spend some time with people, and I just watch them, they'll utter certain words when they're doing certain things. They'll point and they'll say a word, and I'll work out what that means, what it is. Some people learn an entire language that way. I mean, if you live in a community where people speak certain languages you have no idea about, after all, it actually won't take you long to pick up the language. You may think you could never learn a language. Necessity is the mother of invention and learning. You'd pick it up very quickly, and you could learn it just as simply as watching them point at certain things, and then what they say a sound, you repeat it, and you soon find out what it means. This is how babies learn to talk. Because I had my own daughter. I remember I would suddenly say something, and she would then repeat it, and pretty soon she'd be pointing at the object and saying that word, like cone, which was like a traffic cone. She said cone, cat, things like that, as well as people's names. Mum, mummy, nan, papa, things like that, dad, things like that. She'd learn that, and that's how the whales. So that's how we would have to learn their language, I think, because we're trying to create a dictionary and grammar, essentially write a new dictionary and grammar of what they're saying. So we've already worked out there are coders. There's a catalog already. So essentially we have a dictionary of a certain amount of coders, but we just need definitions to go with it, because a dictionary is useless if it's just a list of words. You have to know what it means. And there was a book. I read this years ago when I was a kid. Right, just a sec. I'm just going to find it, because I went looking for it, actually. I thought, have I got the copy in my home still? Because he wrote, Arthur C. Clarke. This refers to Arthur C. Clarke, who was a very, very famous science fiction writer and scientist and proponent of space exploration. And also, I should point out, a very interesting person in terms of their discussion of paranormal phenomena, because Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. Now, Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World is a really, really good series. I mean, I watched them when I was a kid, and I loved them. Which means I must have been a bit of a woo-woo even when I was a little kid. And I've watched them all again on YouTube. They're all on YouTube if you want to see them. And it's this book here. I read this. Where is it? Here we go. Dolphin Island, The People of the Sea. And this is this Wikipedia page. A children's novel. He wrote a handful of books for younger readers, what we now call young adult fiction. And it's about a young chap who he runs away from home and ends up on an island in the he ends up in an island in the Pacific Ocean. And he says here, begins involved with the work of a strange and fascinating research community where a brilliant professor tries to communicate with dolphins. Johnny learns to dive, survives a typhoon, and they even translate. They are literally translating these dolphins' words. So, for example, they have a word for themselves, which means the people of the sea. Hence the title of the book, Dolphin Island. Yeah, I'll just try and show you that. Let's just see if I can find the edition I had. Just a second. Let's have a look. Can I recognize any of these? Here it is. This is the one I had. Dolphin Eye. This is the cover of the book. That's the cover of the book. It's not very good. It's not. Here we are. This is a better picture of it. That's the cover I had. Arthur C. Clarke, Dolphin Island. This is one of the few books Clarke wrote for younger readers, young adult fiction. There was another one called The Other Side of the Sky. No. So what was it called? No, Islands in the Sky. That was very good. The Other Side of the Sky is a different story, but that's worth reading because it's about this very, very. It's about this very issue. What if we did decode them? What if we learned to speak to the cetaceans? Because it could be a bit tricky because now, those of you who know I'm obviously interested in hospital portering. There is a particular hospital porter who made this complete subject many years before it became feasible, or even the idea that whales and dolphins had language. He came up with an interesting idea. It's summed up by the phrase, "If a lion could speak, we still could not understand him." And the hospital porter who came up with this phrase is a man called Ludwig Wittgenstein. Let's have a look at him. Let's have a look at my brother. And so this is my brother, Ludwig Wittgenstein. Great hospital porter. Here we go. And it just says here, Austrian-German philosopher Ludwig Joseph Johann Wittgenstein. And there's his date of birth and death. Austro-British philosopher, worked in logic, philosophy of mind, language, mathematics. But where does it mention he was a hospital porter? He was a hospital porter. He did 2 stints, one at an Austrian Army field hospital in the Great War, and also at Guy's Hospital. Here we are, Guy's Hospital. Here we go. Wittgenstein. Here we go. Where does it say here? He started working at Guy's as a dispensary porter, in other words, a pharmacy porter delivering drugs from wards in a pharmacy. He advised the patients not to take them. Oh God, he wouldn't get away. He wouldn't get away with that now. But yes, he's my brother, Ludwig Wittgenstein, hospital porter's pride and dignity. But one thing he did say was, I'm just going to run it through that Google. I'm going to run it through Google AI. Sorry, but it's useful. Ludwig Wittgenstein. Let's just see what Google AI says. In fact, I'll share this with you. I'm not going to. I'll share this with you guys. Here we go. If a lion could speak, we still could not understand him. What is meant by this? What is meant by this saying? I'll put this in quotes just in case Google gets, just in case I don't want to confuse its little tiny little head. I don't want to lose its pretty little mind. There we go. What's okay? Ludwig Wittgenstein's famous aphorism, "If a lion could speak, we could not understand him," means that language is inseparable from a shared form of life, shared experiences, and human-specific biology. If a lion could mechanically produce English words, its conceptual framework, instincts, and world perspective would remain entirely alien to us. And again, expand this, and if this whole idea diverges even further when it comes on to aliens. Forms of life, Lebensform. Wittgenstein argued that language gets its meaning from the collective practices, culture, and biological realities of the speakers. A lion's form of life revolves around hunting, pride hierarchies, and savanna survival. Because humans do not share these primal contexts, a lion's translated thoughts would lack the necessary context for true comprehension. Language games. Language is not just a system of labels for physical objects. It's an active social practice. We use languages to make jokes, show empathy, negotiate, and express human emotions. A lion cannot participate in human language games because its needs, desires, and social structures are fundamentally different. I should actually point out this is actually a problem. This is an issue even dealing with other cultures on Earth within our own species. This is why my brother went to China. Once he spent a couple of weeks in China visiting a friend who lives there, and he saw the body of a dead baby lying in the gutter, which horrified him, obviously. But the people around him were just walking past it. This is just, and there's many other examples I can give you, which is one of the reasons why when you get this is a problem we're certainly facing in Europe and in my own country, Britain, when you get large numbers of foreign people from other countries suddenly arriving. There's inevitably going to be a huge amount of conflict because of these as Wittgenstein put it, collective practices and culture and biological realities, etc. Well, not biological necessarily, but social, cultural realities, because That's even within one species. So the illusion of translation. Can you read that? I've still got it on. Yeah, I've still got it on this shared screen. If a lion said that hunt was good, humans might understand the individual words, but we could not grasp the subjective instinctual experience of what goodness or the hunt truly feels like to a lion. Meaning requires shared empathy, shared experiences, not just shared vocabulary. Consider how humans use the phrase, it's freezing outside. To another human, this implies discomfort, the need for a coat, or a desire to go indoors. If an Arctic polar bear could say, it's freezing outside, it would mean something entirely different. Perhaps that the weather is perfect for hunting seals. Because our biological realities conflict, the words lose their shared meaning. And this indeed is why this decoding, this idea that somehow you will be able to understand them say, let's dive, or good night, is a long way off, because whales live in a completely different world from us. Their experience of life is totally different from us. The way they think and feel is going to be totally different for us, even though they have there's some shared characteristics. Grief. We've just been discussing the orca that carried the babies, that carried the baby for 17 days. That's a shared experience, which inevitably comes out of love, and the loss of someone you love to death. This is something we do share, but other things we won't be able to share at all. So it's quite a long way off, I think, this idea. Now, and then the thing is, there's something else that I think probably people at SETI understand what I've just told you. But there's something else a lot of them don't seem to understand, having studied their literature. Supposing we could somehow find a way to translate directly and understand what these coders means, so we could then create a machine which could radiate sound, a kind of active sonar adaptive device, or a Gertrude as it's called, which could actually radiate these sounds into the ocean, which could then be picked up so they would hear us speaking to them in their own language. Just like in the book Dolphin Island. I've watched several people like gushing over this, even in the YouTube comments sections, like on Anton Petrov's video. I've seen people filling up on the LinkedIn page for Project SETI. People are like really, really saying, wouldn't it be exciting? Wouldn't it be fun? Just think of the conversations we could have. Think of the ideas we could exchange. I can't wait for the time when we can talk to the whales and dolphins. It would be an amazing moment. It would be so enlightening and overwhelmingly interesting. Would it? It would also be it could also be very, very unpleasant. And I think it could actually turn out to be, our initial conversation certainly could turn out to be very difficult for us. Because the whales, once they can speak to us, what are they going to say? Are they going to say, "Hi, humans? Well, it's nice to be able to exchange ideas and shoot the breeze with you guys. We've often wondered what it must be like to be you, and now we can talk to you. Ho, ho, ho. Chuck us some fish, will you? And then we'll come closer." No. I think the first thing, the first whale is going to say to the first human on that magic moment when we suddenly first share ideas, the first thing they're going to say is they're going to ask questions. And the first question they're probably going to ask is, why did you harpoon my son? Why did you kill so many of us? Why did you dump these horrible fishing nets in the sea which tangle us up and kill us? Why did you put these fishing lines which cut our fins off? Why do you do this to us? Why do you fill our environment with noise that confuses us and means we can't talk to each other? That deafens us. Why do you send your own warships, which, as I've said, are very quiet, but they can make active sonar noises which break our eardrums? Why do you have this electronic transmission in Alaska, the HARP thing, which confuses us so much we end up swimming up onto beaches? Why did you do this to us? And we humans are going to have to do some explaining, aren't we? we're really going to have to do some explaining. How will we respond? How do we possibly explain that? I mean, there's something else. I'm not going to play it, actually, not just for copyright reasons, because I've watched it once and it's just so heartbreaking I can't watch it again. But it's this. It's Whale Nation. You see, it's a feature length. It is actually a feature length thing here, which it's a feature length video here, which is actually a recitation with illustrations.
Poet Ted Hughes said, "A measured unfolding of real things from the heart."
This is recorded quite a long time ago.
Their words concerned with the Heathcote Williams wonderfully moving poem about the spectacular world of whales and dolphins and their tragic destruction at the hands of man. Here is a mysterious entity called Whale Nation.
Yep. Right, Whale Nation is a poem by Heathcote Williams. One of the most, I think, one of the most amazing poets ever. He wrote poems about. He wrote another poem about elephants as well. So I'm not going to play much of this, but this is a recitation. I'll show you little clips of it. This guy here.
And the whale's lips formed their distant, humorous curl. When we were clawed.
It's a long poem that fills an entire book, and he goes on like this. Then it all turns red because he starts talking about whale hunting. I can't watch this. I'm not going to watch it. Not just because I don't want a third-party strike, because I can never watch this again. It's too heartbreaking. I mean, some of you know this already, and you probably gathered that there are certain things that some people can't bear. Everyone has a kind of Room 101 kind of horror. With the Winston Smith, it was rats. With someone else, it might be different. If I was ever in Room 101, the worst thing they could do to me is to show me whaling videos. People, whales being harpooned and cut up and things like that. That's my Room 101. I find it utterly obscene and repulsive to the point where I just can't even bear to look at it. And I've always been like that ever since I was a little kid. And I mean, we're going to have to explain this to them. I don't know what we can do. I mean, you see, I love Star Trek. All right, I love Star Trek. Oh, I do. I love. I mean, who doesn't love Star Trek? But it's. I'm just going to open a new tab because I'm going to go back to Google AI again because I want them to help me again. There's a Star Trek episode. Let me just find it. All you Trekkies are yelling at me now. Involves these creatures called a Horta. All you Trekkies are saying, it's this episode, it's that. It's in the original series. Here we go. Right, there's a Star Trek animal called a Horta. Right, here it is. Now, the Horta is a famous fictional silicon-based life form that first appeared in Star Trek, the original series, in an episode entitled Devil in the Dark. Oh, here it is. There's a Wikipedia page for it. Now, this is the 25th episode of the first season, broadcast 1967, where they go to investigate deaths at a planetary mining facility. Spock and Kirk go on a mission and end up facing off against a deadly subterranean creature, this creature they call the Horta. And well, I won't give you too many spoilers, but it turns out these Horta, the Horta, what's happening is the miners in this mining colony is in this alien planet have been basically smashing up the eggs of the Horta, thinking they're just mineral. And it turns out that they're actually the eggs of the babies. And the Horta are killing these miners to defend their children, their babies. And when Spock mind melds with the Horta, and it's a very, very upsetting scene, actually, because he actually repeats the thoughts of the Horta about losing their babies and things like this. And it's really upsetting. But, of course, Star Trek being Star Trek, which is a very, very utopian series indeed. If it had been Blake 7, it would have gone a different way. Yeah. The moment Spock and Kirk go and report this to the miners, they immediately say, "Oh my God, what have we done? Oh my God, we've been. Oh dear. Well, we will stop immediately. We will immediately take steps to protect these eggs, and we're really, really sorry. Of course, if, like I say, if it were Blake 7, it'd be different. In real life, a lot of people would say, "Hang on a minute, though, it's more profitable for us simply to carry on ploughing over these eggs, so we're still going to do it." It's possible. So, but in Star Trek, because it's so idealistic, I'll just say what I'll just say here. I'll just ask again. I'll ask Google AI. I'll say this episode is very idealistic. In real life, would the miners really care about the water? This episode is very idealistic. In real life, would the miners really care about the horters? And it says, in real-world human history, miners and corporations would almost certainly destroy the eggs to prioritize profit over the species' survival, making the episode's resolution highly idealistic. Yeah, and there's many, many real-life examples. But then you see the core message of Star Trek's idealism. The episode is intentionally idealistic because Gene Roddenberry used Star Trek as a vehicle for philosophical and social commentary. By having Captain Kirk choose diplomacy over extermination, the episode serves as a direct critique of humanity's real-life world colonial history and urges us to overcome our destructive instincts. Yeah, it's Star Trek is very utopian, as opposed, as I said, I keep comparing it to Blake 7, a British TV series from the decade afterwards. It first came out like in the late 70s, which is very dystopian. Even though there are many similarities between the two series, and clearly Blake 7 has been accused for being unoriginal. You know, the transporter thing, you know, the beam me up thing, that was in Blake 7 too. But it's very, very different. Its social commentary is very different to Star Trek. And so the point I'm making is that when it comes to the whales, I mean, how many times have we killed these creatures? What Heathcote Williams says in his poem, which you can see in that video, he calls us blind dwarfs. Maybe that's how the whales see us, or maybe they see us as maybe it's even worse. Maybe they see us as something evil, something demonic, almost. If they have like a religion, and they could see us as the devil. And why wouldn't they? So basically, yeah, if you want more, all I can add now, I think I've covered it. And maybe there'll be a third part to this, you never know. Arrival 2016 film. If you've not seen it, I mean, I bloody talked about it on this channel enough. I may have even done a review video. I've certainly done a review article, but Arrival film, there we go. Do watch it. Do watch this, please, because it's all about that. It's all about language and communication. It's a fantastic film, the best alien invasion movie ever. I mean, alien invasion movies, there's many, many of them going right back to War of the Worlds. They vary in technical creativity and intellectual content, very, very much indeed. And that one scores very highly on both axes. But yeah, that is kind of where we're at the moment, and we won't know any more until Project SETI does find a way to do more analysis of the coders and the languages of the whales, and maybe at some point we will get some kind of meaning will come out of them, and we'll be able to put definitions into that dictionary. But I think one thing that Project SETI has actually done is achieved, and to be fair to Molly, it didn't even start until 2 years after Molly did his silly video. But on the other hand, there were hints beforehand. As I said, Denise Herzing discovered it was the dolphin languages and things like that, the dolphin clicks, and other researchers have also been looking into this, going right back to Peter Lilly, who Molly himself castigates and says is stupid. Molly could have looked into it a bit more, and maybe he's looking into it now and realizes that everything he said in that video, all the times he took the mickey out of his guest, which I rightly castigate him for in Dolphins, the reply to Stefan Molyneux, the first one, the predecessor to this video. everything he's been saying is crap. He's wrong. And I hope maybe he'll do a video because he does have this sort of humbleness occasionally, and there's a video series called "Why I Was Wrong About," and there's a subject comes after it, why I was wrong about, A, B, and C, and maybe he'll do a video says maybe he'll make a video if he's watching me now, and he does sometimes watch me, I think. Maybe he'll make a video saying why I was wrong about dolphins. Oh, there's more coming up, ladies and gents. Okay, there's a couple of live streams coming up because if you're familiar with this channel, there's a couple of events coming up this month which I'll be covering in live streams. So keep an eye out for those next week. Then I'm going to be going away on a little trip, and I'll be doing a reportage. So keep an eye out for that. So this month's going to be busy on Hapanwo TV. So keep an eye on the channel, like, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Or if you are a sperm whale.